Hard work didn't stop working. Its reward was reassigned. And most people are still playing by rules that no longer determine outcomes. For most of modern history, effort was directly tied to stability. If you worked hard, you moved forward. The relationship wasn't perfect, but it was reliable enough that people built entire lives around it. You could make plans. You could commit to a path. You could tolerate discomfort with reasonable confidence that it would eventually lead somewhere better. More hours usually meant more output. More output usually meant more pay. Over time, consistency translated into progress, and progress translated into security. Not wealth for everyone, but stability, predictability, a sense that effort was recognized by the system itself. That logic shaped how people understood fairness. It shaped education systems, career paths, and personal identity. You showed up, you learned the rules, you followed instructions, you did your job well, and you expected the system to meet you halfway. Not instantly, not effortlessly, but eventually. For decades, that expectation wasn't unreasonable. Today, that link is no longer guaranteed. Not because people stopped working hard. In many cases, people are working harder than ever. Longer hours, constant availability, fewer boundaries between work and rest, more pressure to perform, more competition for fewer meaningful gains. Yet the outcomes no longer scale in proportion to the effort being applied. This is where confusion begins. People feel busy all the time. They feel stretched. They feel permanently behind. Their calendars are full. Their days are packed. Their energy is depleted. And still, the distance between effort and outcome keeps growing. The harder they push, the less progress they seem to make. The mistake isn't laziness. It isn't entitlement. It isn't a lack of discipline or motivation. The real mistake is misunderstanding which systems actually reward effort now. Most people are still operating with assumptions that were built for a different economic structure. The belief is simple and deeply ingrained. If you work hard, you'll be rewarded. If you struggle, you didn't work hard enough. And if you're falling behind, the solution must be more effort, more sacrifice, more pressure. That belief feels fair. It feels moral. It feels earned. And for a long time, it was mostly true. In industrial economies, output scaled with hours. Factories needed human labor. Machines required operators. Production was constrained by how many people showed up and how long they worked. When labor was scarce, effort had pricing power. Pay tracked effort because effort was the bottleneck. If you worked more shifts, you produced more units. If you produced more units, you earned more money. Cause and effect were visible. You could point to the output and trace it directly back to the hours that created it. Effort was scarce. Capital was limited. Distribution was local. Scale was difficult. In that environment, hard work wasn't just respected. It was leverage. It was the multiplier that turned time into income and income into stability. You didn't need to understand systems or incentives. The system itself rewarded participation, but that world no longer exists. Not because effort stopped mattering, but because effort stopped being the constraint. Today, effort is abundant. Millions of people work hard at the same time, across borders, across time zones, across industries, competing not just with colleagues in the same organization, but with entire labor markets, automation, software, platforms, and systems that never sleep. When effort becomes abundant, it loses pricing power. And when something loses pricing power, systems stop rewarding it directly. Modern systems reward what is scarce instead. That scarcity has moved upstream, away from labor and into ownership, into leverage, into capital structure, into distribution, into positioning, into control over how effort is multiplied rather than how much effort is applied. This shift is subtle, which is why so many people miss it. Most people still experience the economy at the level of effort. They feel tired, busy, overcommitted. They see themselves moving constantly, and they assume movement equals progress. If something isn't working, they add more energy. But effort today often enters systems after outcomes are already shaped. By the time your work shows up, the reward structure has already been decided. Ownership has already been allocated. Leverage has already been embedded. Distribution has already been secured. Incentives have already been locked in. The system has already decided who captures upside, who absorbs risk, and who competes for what remains. That's why working harder inside a poorly positioned system doesn't compound. It exhausts. You can apply enormous effort and still make very little progress if the system you're inside doesn't scale that effort. The energy dissipates instead of multiplying. Returns flatten instead of compounding. Stress increases while rewards stagnate. This is where frustration turns inward. People assume the problem is personal, that they're not good enough, not disciplined enough, not focused enough, not committed enough, so they double down, more hours, less rest, more pressure, more self-blame. But in many cases, the issue isn't effort, it's placement. They are working hard in the wrong part of the machine. This is the hidden edge. Wealth today is shaped before effort begins. Leverage decides scale. Capital decides ownership. Distribution decides reach. Incentives decide where value flows. Structure determines who benefits when effort is applied. Effort still matters, but it matters after these structures are in place, not before. Without leverage, effort stays linear. You trade time for output. When time runs out, growth stops. There is a ceiling you can't push through with intensity alone. With leverage, effort compounds. The same action produces outsized impact because it is multiplied by systems that scale. Code scales, capital scales, media scales, ownership scales, platform scale, distribution scales. This distinction explains why two people can work equally hard and end up in completely different places. In careers, hard work without positioning caps upside. You can be reliable, skilled, and committed. You can exceed expectations year after year. You can take on more responsibility, but if your role doesn't scale, your effort eventually hits a ceiling. Promotions become competitive, raises flatten, work expands faster than compensation, not because you failed, but because the structure limits what effort can do. Effort applied in positions closer to leverage compounds differently. Roles connected to ownership, decision-making, distribution, or scalable output amplify the same amount of work. The system multiplies effort instead of absorbing it. In business, effort without distribution stays invisible. You can build something thoughtful, useful, and well executed. You can spend years refining it, but if it doesn't reach people, effort never converts into outcomes. Distribution determines whether work compounds or disappears quietly. The system does not reward how hard something was to create. It rewards reach, access, timing, and positioning. Effort is necessary, but never sufficient. In investing, time and structure outperform labor. You don't get paid for how hard you analyze. You don't get paid for how stressed you feel. You get paid for ownership, exposure to time, and alignment with systems that compound. The system rewards patience and positioning, not intensity. Across these domains, the pattern is consistent. Effort is downstream. Systems decide flow. That doesn't mean effort is useless. It means effort alone is no longer decisive. Hard work didn't fail you. It was simply outranked. The rules changed quietly. There was no announcement, No clear turning point, no moment where everyone was informed that the reward structure had shifted. Just a gradual reassignment of value away from labor and towards structure, leverage, and ownership. That's why so many people feel like they're doing everything right and still falling behind. They are following an outdated map. The more useful question now isn't how hard you work. It's where your effort enters the system. Upstream effort compounds, downstream effort leaks. Once you understand this, your decisions start to change. You stop chasing intensity as a solution. You stop mistaking motion for progress. You stop assuming exhaustion is evidence of effectiveness. Instead, you start asking structural questions before committing energy. Where does this effort scale? Who owns the output? What controls distribution? What incentives shape the outcome? What happens if I repeat this decision for 10 years? These questions aren't about working less. They're about working where effort actually matters. Effort still matters, but only when it's applied upstream. That's the hidden edge. And once you see it clearly, you stop confusing movement with progress.